Duke's new driver. Duke had always had adventures with his driver and fireman together, but he had always enjoyed pulling passengers around the sights of Sodor while his driver drives him well. Sometimes Duke's driver can always think Duke was letting him down by making him late, but that never bothers Duke at all, because sometimes Duke could always think that his driver was always a good driver to him ever since. But one evening, Duke's driver had suddenly taken ill, so his driver spoke sadly to Duke. Your driver has to have a day off tomorrow, he said, so I'm afraid I'll have to get someone to push you back into the sheds without him. But I'll still be on board you, though. Duke was ashamed, but had realised that his driver was ill for tomorrow, and with that, his driver went home, and his fireman climbed on board Duke. Duke was sad. Now who's going to be my new driver, he thought. But just then, Mike had to shunt Duke back to the sheds, and with that, Mike shunted him gently back. At last, Mike shunted Duke into the sheds, and poor Duke, without his driver, was still upset that his driver was ill. Just then, however, he was shunted gently into his shed, and Mike puffed away. His fireman left, and Duke went sadly to sleep. Early next morning, Duke woke up with the Fat Controller and his fireman, and with a new gentleman in blue waiting for Duke to wake up. The Fat Controller spoke to Duke. "This is your new driver," he said. He'll be taking over for you for a while before your old driver will feel better." "Yes, sir," said Duke, and the Fat Controller walked away. The new driver was not very nice. He spoke naughtily to Duke. "Duke, is it?" he said. Now there's going to be no more of your nonsense, or I'll be really angry with you. Understand?" "Yes," said Duke. "Good," said the driver, and he and the fireman walked inside Duke. And with that, Duke clanked away out of the sheds. Just then, Duke was reversing to the yards. His old driver would normally shunt him gently to the coaches, but his new driver was handling him roughly, so he made Duke bump the coaches hard. "Oh, oh," groaned the coaches. "What was that for?" "Sorry," apologized Duke, and he continued shunting the coaches reversely into the station, where Hank was waiting. He was worried about Duke. "Duke," he said, "is everything okay?" "No," said Duke. And so Duke didn't say a word. The people got in, the guard blew his whistle, and Duke puffed away as Hank watched Duke concernedly watched Duke puff out of the station with his train. Meanwhile, however, Duke was having a rough time with his new driver. "Ooh," groaned Duke. He knew his driver was handling him roughly. His driver wanted Duke to go faster, and so Duke's fireman did as the driver said. "I don't like this," moaned Duke. "Nonsense, Duke," said the driver. The only thing that's wrong with you that you don't know all about hard work," he groaned. Duke was very cross. He did not like what his new driver said, And with that, he started feeling very cross with him as he went way too fast. The passengers were very scared of Duke going too fast, and the coaches were all worried that there could be a crash somehow, but there wasn't. At last they reached the top station, and the passengers were out of their coaches and into the top station. Duke stayed at the top station for a while. He had some plans to finish off later. Later began, and the passengers were ready to go. The guard blew his whistle. Duke's new driver wanted Duke to go, but Duke's brakes were sterned, so Duke didn't move. "What are you playing at, Duke?" said his driver. Duke couldn't move. "Stop it!" he groaned. Now look what you're making the passengers do." The passengers were all complaining as they got out of the coaches, and even so, more trouble began. There was even a bigger row at the station. Just then Emily arrived, and out of Emily was the Fat Controller himself. "What is all this bubbling about?" he said. Duke spoke to the Fat Controller about his new driver handling him roughly. The Fat Controller was very cross with the new driver. "Driver," he said, "Duke is a very hard-working engine, and you should not be handling him roughly," he said. "I cannot have that to my engines." His driver was upset, and the Fat Controller finally apologized to the passengers. At last, the new driver spoke kindly to Duke. I'm sorry, Duke," he said. "Will you forgive me and give me another chance?" Duke smiled. "Certainly," he smiled, and the passengers were happy. Soon the new driver came back on Duke again, and this time Duke came out of the station without going fast, and at last Duke was driven well by his new driver. He began to enjoy the evening when it was starting to go. At last he reached the station, and the passengers gave 3 cheers. At last it was all over, and the Fat Controller who had been on the train came to congratulate Duke and his driver and fireman. "Well done, Duke," he said. "You have made me very proud today, and your driver and fireman are now the best. Your old driver will be coming back tomorrow." Duke was happy and was smiling gladly. His fireman was excited too, but his new driver was from now on learning his lesson to not treat Duke roughly again. Soon midnight finally began, and Duke's new driver spoke kindly to Duke. "I'm so sorry I treated you roughly, Duke," he said, "but I'm going to miss driving you tomorrow. And besides, driving on you was the best. And you really are a hard-working engine, just like what Sir Topham Hatt says," he said. Duke smiled happily. He knows that his new driver was now nice to him, but can sometimes be same old. Until later that day, his old driver finally came back and was feeling better, and then Duke told his story about how the new driver was settling him well. His old driver was pleased, and Duke was happy to have his normal routines again.